Hello.
So before I go to Kshatrapa, calligraphy of Kshatrapa inscriptions, I want to share some more general information as a supportive knowledge or information regarding the aspects connected with calligraphy which we are dealing, and a couple of days which we are going to deal next few days. So while giving a general lecture, a presentation, I had mentioned about the important scripts and their approximate time frame, geographical distribution, and many associated things. But I thought it's very important, the periodization of a script, which later I can give also. So I thought, let me put it on the board, this scripts. So we are still in the early Brahmi phase. I am going to write language almost you know. So this 3rd century BC to 3rd century Common Era. Of course, here and there it may overlap. We cannot exactly, precisely put the time brackets, but approximately. When another script with a different name succeeds, we give different things. So, in the same length, I am not mentioning you have this Kharoshti. Again, the same date. Of course, you can, though there are very few, you can include Aramaic and Greek also, when we speak of a script, it cannot be excluded. So, sorry. So this we don't have further. It can be seen only in the Ashokan rock edict. So just I would like to confine to this period, 3rd century BC. Yes, when coming to the coins, Greek legends you find, that's a different issue. But as a script, you can have as a ready reckoner whenever you want to know or somebody asks, you can have this. Because when I dealt, I thought that there should be a brief list before you just to refer. Broad scripts, not so many variations. And then we can come to the late Brahmi. So this we take from 4th to 6th century. Or 4th and 5th would be ideal. And the box-headed characters. Box head, this would be taken up once we complete this Gupta. We will go with the box-headed characters. So this, keeping the contemporarity of the Vakatakas and other feudatories, we can keep 4th century Kamanara to 7th. It may slightly exceed also, but this all in a very broad term, not to precisely define the chronology, but whenever they say, they may ask when this box-headed prevail. So you should be able to tell these characters. So the basic features when we see, you append a box above, for example this car, and here in this case, nail head, it becomes little cursive and the horizontal stroke remains like this. I will just, for example, I am giving here. This apex should be placed downwards, that is nail head. This is box and this is nail. We will take up more when, just as an example, I am showing you this. And then comes the Siddhamatrika. Or Kutila. Sixth to 8th, 8th century. This also we will be taking up, and the shell characters, Shankulipi. As I told, this will be highly ornamental Siddhamatrika. Shankulipi. This we get again from 6th to 8th century. These 2 centuries very important. Depending on the time, I think we have a small presentation also. I was just explaining. This is a script yet to be successfully deciphered, though a few inscriptions Professor Mukherjee successfully has deciphered. But it has not been carried forward. We cannot make out any alphabetical chart looking at that, because in a very concealed way the letters are written. Yes, for a real researcher, after studying all the previous works or the articles written, the documentation part almost done by the epigraphy branch of the Archaeological Survey of India. If you see the annual reports, right from Madhya Pradesh to, when I speak Madhya Pradesh earlier context, it includes the present state also, Chhattisgarh. Because earlier it was center provinces, later Madhya Pradesh, now we have divided. Tomorrow, for another convenience, we may further take out a portion and carve out another state. It depends. That is, but that fractured way of looking at things for epigraphical study or historicity, it limits us. Already, we have to take Madhya Bharat in the entire context, not to see because every event or cultural event or context is connected to the other neighboring district or state. See, that is administration, and this is a cultural study. Or when they annexed, so many, they didn't think. Yes, they have that South Kosala, North Kosala, or Mahak, whatever. They have done that. Yes, that is that part we have to identify and go with that. Whatever the earlier territorial divisions mentioned by the inscription as well as by the scholars based on the literature also. So this Shankulipi, I will detail, I will go about it when we go to that stage. Then, if I told, the Siddhamatrika is the name from where, the early Nagari script, say it is little about 9th century, you can say 9th to 12th. I am not mentioning here about the Nagari or Devanagari. This in earlier context I am speaking. And then comes the Sharda script. From 10 to actually epigraphical records it continues up to 10th to 15th century. Perhaps next to Nagari or its derivative, Sharda script has a very long history, right from 9th or little later, first as an epigraphical language, even simultaneously maybe as a manuscript. Even 17th, 18th century, you have huge, large number of manuscripts written in Sharda script. So if you go to IGNCA or that's why they do conduct special course connected with either early Nagari, mostly on Sharda script, because all these Oriental research institutes, they do take up this editing of the many of the manuscripts written in Talapatra, Bhurjapatra for editing. So Sharda script has a very long history as a script. As a inscriptional script, yes, so for sometime around 10th to 15th century, and the other divisions being, we call it Devashesha and Takri, that you get mostly in Himachal area. Devashesha, after Sharda, Devashesha comes, and then followed by Takri. They owe their origin to Sharda script only. If you are interested to pursue more, know about it, please do refer the book written by Kaul Diyambi. Very, very important book, and earlier he wrote Corpus of Sharda inscriptions.
Sir, what's the name of the book, sir?
Book, it's a long title. Kaul Diyambi latest edition about Sharda script and its derivative. Exact, I think PDF may be available, but it must be available with the IGNCA. There, he has dealt with all the Gurumukhi, many other sects, including that. Tomorrow I will let you know how that title tell you. But
So is the book published by IGNCA?
IGNCA. Earlier we used to invite that scholar whenever we had any workshop on, we used to have, now only I am dealing alone. Earlier when we did, for Shobhana Gokalaji for Indian numerals and Professor B.N. Mukherjee for Kharoshti, we had chosen great personalities. A.K. Singh to deal with Nagari script, different like that. And Kaul Diyambi for Sharda script. He has attended many whenever he used to invite. And only last few years or century, decades maybe, with the first disturbance of Kashmiri Brahmins, he got dislocated. Somewhere we are unable to make out. Perhaps the IGNC may be knowing, and that's why he has done that work later. But a very eminent person as far as the epigraphs are concerned with the Sharda script. So, though I am not an authority, but I am able to give little insight about these scripts. Otherwise, we have to, for this 7 days in all, like Saptami, you have to invite each one scholar for each to deal with the script, where we don't have now at present. That's the problem. The issue is that. So to gain, yes, there are Proto-Bengali, again we have to call. For Assamese, Subrat Kumar Acharya ji is a very, in the recent years he has done a wonderful work on the calligraphy of the Orisen inscriptions. So we do have, but we have to invite them specially. What I used to suggest is, in the common course, we will have a talk like this. Evenings there should be a special lecture, one or two, by eminent personalities who throw light on the calligraphical aspects, historical aspects, or many something. So that if it happens, that's really wonderful. It will not interfere with our regular teaching. At the same time, we will be tremendously benefited by listening to other eminent scholars. That's all thinking, but materially is very difficult. And even this, I owe to Prabhat Singh, who took very keen interest to arrange this. Unless you know a person who takes very deep interest in these organizing such events, it cannot materialize. You may tell many, unless the person is known personally or who has interest in the field, fortunately the government also should support such events, otherwise it's over. And then we have this Gaudiya. I hope you can follow, see this. Or we can call it Proto-Bengali. Which you find in Pala Sena records of eastern region. Again from 10th to 13th century Common Era. After 14th, perhaps 14th, Bengali script came. So prior to that we call it Proto-Nagari, or why, how proto-history we call it. It's a stage earlier to that. That's what we call it. Proto is this one. Proto-Nagari or Proto-Bengali. Just one stage earlier to that. So I will remove who above. And then there is one rarely heard Bhaikshuki script. Bhaikshuki. This is the bhikshus, the Buddhists, they employ this, and a certain part of Bihar, you have this inscription. Not more than half a dozen or 8 to 9 inscriptions we have written in this Bhaikshuki script. So somehow it didn't gain popularity, and it didn't travel, go to other region. It confined to very limited area used by the Buddhists and is of religious nature. Just to show one letter, suppose it has a Brahmi connection, Ga is written, but the attachment goes on the sideways. I have written a calligraphy of the Bhaikshuki inscription in Dr. Ramesh commemoration volume. If you are interested, you can read that. Not full chart was available, but I have tried to bring different thoughts given by D.C. Sarkar and others. Already he has edited, but I brought to the focus. We are nothing doing anything new in that. What earlier scholars have brought, we are just projecting, say this is in sequence what you have to see. Even that is also a great job. We will not do something new. It's beyond our thing. But a consolidated thing, what others scholars, perhaps many of you might not have read about the Bhaikshuki at all. How many of you know in this group about Bhaikshuki? So this is very rare. Perhaps I heard one of the UPSC experts ask the question, tell me about the Bhaikshuki script. So this around 10th century, calligraphically, though it has very strong root, each character appears like late Brahmi, but due to other considerations, it is taken to be there in the 10th century, 9th or 10th, end of 9th century, but only a handful of inscriptions. And then we can take Nagari. Of course, I have here the 12th century. Marathi, again 11th century, inscriptions, Odia, again they say around 10th century, Gujarati, this is much later, we get from 14th, 15th century. And Bengali as a language also late. As a script also, we can take a little later, 14th century. Yes, when you examine, there are Hindi inscriptions also. That I have not included here. There are many late inscriptions. We find Hindi as a language, Devanagari script. So this is a very broad-based classification I have given, and the language I did not mention here, especially in the context of northern India. The first phase, of course, you have Prakrit, and then second category comes that is end of 1st century BC and the beginning of 1st century Common Era. It's called Prakrit, influenced by Sanskrit. And similarly, Sanskrit influenced by Prakrit. That's inter alia. That so this entire thing, somewhere you can see between 1st century, end of 1st century BC and the beginning of the 1st century Common Era. This continued till the emergence of the Guptas. Of course, we had a number of Sanskrit inscriptions, but the Guptas, with that, Sanskrit becomes a very prominent language. From 5th or 6th, 4th century itself, and it continued till late medieval period, whether in the context of North Indian context, even if there are Bengali or Marathi, you find lot many Sanskrit inscriptions. So this is with respect to the northern India. I'll give a quick view about the inscriptions from south.
What is the name of the script used in Tibet?
Tibet, that is called Tibetan script itself. There is no particular name. But later you have Nevari and others. But Tibetan alphabet only we call it. It goes by the name. There is no separate. If I remember, Epigraphia Indica, volume 10 has a very detailed article about the Tibetan script. Earlier we used to request all of the officers who are in ASI to give a talk on the Tibetan. And it has very strong roots with the Siddhamatrika characters. Somewhere around the 7th, 8th century onwards, and what I examined are mainly Om Mani Padme Om or Ye Dharma Hetu. Om Mani Padme Om you get many. It has got its own religious this one. Thoda. Now, a quick look at the South Indian scripts. So, right from Ashoka, when you take either from Karnataka, Andhra, we call this early Brahmi, South India. Again, same period holds good, 3rd century BC to whatever, even Satavahana.
No, sir. वो वाला ऑन कर दो, उधर का जो बंद है उसको ऑन करो, इस तरफ को बंद करो. ठीक है. सारण बंद कर. ठीक है. ठीक है. हाँ, हो गया. ठीक है.
So this, like from Ashoka and Satavahana, up to 2nd or Little Lake, Kadambas. We call it early Brahmi. Script. This I am talking about the script. So here again comes the late Brahmi. From 1 minute. We can put it even second, because after the end of 2nd century, the 3rd century BC, I mean Common Era, up to 4th or 5th century, we call it late Brahmi, the Kadamba inscriptions and all.
Yesterday you were mentioning during Chola Sutta, early Brahmi was way before 5th BC.
Yes.
And right now you are saying yes at 30.
No, this is the popularly accepted. Yes. In the light of the new discovery, because why I am mentioning this, I am taking into view the Ashokan. Yes, as a Tamil, I think I have mentioned, no, it is not mentioned here. You are correct. We can push the antiquity if we include the Tamil Nadu especially. Brahmi as a script, whether you call Tamil Brahmi as Brahmi, the antiquity can be taken to 5th century BC. Correct. Either you can modify here or write separately, showing that the earlier records Tamil archaic inscriptions. You can show separately, because I am not bringing, Ashokan we still established. These are the new discoveries yet to gain ground and stabilize. And then Bhattiprolu, I told this is 3rd century, because again this is only one record, but well established, and recent years scholars are reviewing the whole thing. Of course date cannot be questioned, but the contents they are reviewing again, what it could be. I have not gone into the latest articles with regard to this. And I have mentioned here this Tamil Brahmi here. You can take here as the 5th century BC, and somewhere around scholars consider up to a 5th century or 3rd century Common Era. We have number of inscriptions. So just to again remind you, you can go through the book by Airavata Mahadevan regarding the corpus of Tamil Brahmi inscriptions. And there is one peculiar area, even in the context of North India also, between 5th and 6th century, once the late Brahmi ends, we don't know. If you look into number of our Epigraphia Indica publications, especially those records of 6th century or 7th or 6th especially, they call it northern characters. So they have not pointedly named or any specific. It's actually a progression between the late Brahmi, the beginning of the Siddhamatrika. That one phase, like interregnum, we don't know. They either call it northern characters. Similarly is the case with they say in the south also, southern characters. After the Kadamba, that period, 5th, 6th century, before the other regional scripts come to emergence, they call it southern characters. But again, a serious palagrapher, a student, why I am drawing this, whether I do that research work or not, I am drawing your attention to look into these aspects. When you thoroughly see, it's not a mere job, examine those. Whenever you come across the work, in the Epigraphia Indica, southern characters or northern characters, you should make a separate note. And later, why at all they call, why can't we give some name? We don't know. And this issue is there. And here Kannada both as a script as well as language, I am telling. Whenever I take some names, this is with regard to the script as well as language. We say 5th century, that Halmidi And again, I mean to say Tamil as a script, as a language. Say they say 7th century, and Grantha, we have in the similar phase. Pallava Grantha, Grantha is there. Again, Pallavas wrote very stylistically, we also call Pallava Grantha. Again, Grantha, there are two different systems, but they have some semblance, but this is highly calligraphical. When you see Kailasanatha temple, many of the Pallava inscriptions, you find very artistic. This all somewhere 7th only you find, and then the Telugu 8th century, roughly, and Malayalam much late as a script and language. Somewhere around 14th century, you have, I told you how Vatteluttu, through that we come to know about the Malayalam script award. Basically, but they are also written in Vatteluttu. Tamil is the major script, but they also wrote, I told you, Grantha, whenever they want to express Sanskrit, maybe some verse or some connected with they used in between Tamil, Grantha also. But there are many Grantha with Sanskrit also. There are few Grantha inscriptions are there. And another Vatteluttu. These are all scripts used by the not only Cholas, Pandya, Cheras and other kings, dynasties who ruled over Tamil Nadu, part of Tamil Nadu and other adjacent area. So I have tried to give a panoramic picture of the scripts both in the North Indian context as well as in the South. Maybe minor are there, but I have not taken note of it. But for our inscription purpose, if somebody has some chronological framework, you can tell. Though they overlap on some context, you can't draw a clear-cut boundary. This ends, another starts. It always goes here and there, 50 years or 100 years here and there. But this is only a general. Earlier I was not teaching this and telling. Now I thought, each student should have a broad framework of all this thing. Suddenly someone questions, where did Vatteluttu started and what is the time period? At least you should be able to give very general remarks. If not the deeper calligraphical aspects, even I don't know. I can't say.
So post Malayalam, Chera and Pandya used to
Yes.
language and script.
No, they used Malayalam. But early,
Post Malayalam.
no, Malayalam is even now used. It's like Kannada, what we speak, Malayalam is the inscription language, Malayalam also same, with a little difference. And now also Malayalam is the mother tongue of the Kerala. So even now they speak Malayalam. There is not much difference. But the Here when I mentioned about the script, earlier inscriptions we had in Vatayuth. But Vatayuth slowly transformed into Malayalam script around 14th, 15th century. And as far as even we find Grantha in Kerala also, and a larger number of Sanskrit inscriptions are written in early Grantha.
Sir, but the language spoken before 14th century in Kerala was also Malayalam.
No. See, the Tamil was there already, known and adjacent area, but it developed later. Script as well as the language also little later. But prior to that, as you rightly said, maybe Tamil. But it's a very moot question. Even I have to clarify when I meet some scholars. Very pertinent point is this. Hold this. Hope you are all enjoying the classes. I can't make it little more attractive. I don't know. The subject is that I can't keep narrating stories to attract always your attention. But the seriousness of the subject is that, but I am giving some lighter insights and this background overall. But yes, as I told, all of you require lot of patience. Teacher also should have, the taught also, the students also need patience. Epigraphy is such a subject. What I have written you can tell, history department students. These are all common things. You can take this to the public. At least school students who know in general you give a talk about the Brahmi and its further, these are in historical perspective we should give to our young children. They know all the scripts, aware of the different scripts and what is inscriptionally important, you can tell. Then one more general thing which I would like to mention here. Certain features So certain principles you have to know. I was telling when in the progression from early Brahmi to even in early Brahmi, from Mauryan to the next stage, especially with the advent of the Kshaka Kshatrapas, they did happen some changes, and there are 4 or 5 principles you can keep in mind. One is lengthening of the verticals. So here, for example, R we used to write like this, with equal length in the Mauryan and the curve arm touching like this. But later, especially in the next phase, especially the Kshatrapas, even in South Indian context, they simply extended the stroke wherever vertical is there, and then they attached a stroke, and I told as a principle they curtailed this. The lower stroke will be very short, and you find the vertical stroke, at least in Indian, South Indian context, when you see Ikshwaku and others, they lengthen the vertical. Though not be very long, you find this extended, and also they gave a small curve, not very prominent. Similarly, case with the Ka, is the Mauryan, and you find with a little head mark, again they extended the stroke. So remember, wherever the verticals were there, they extended, and they give a short, which we call it dagger variety Ka. And Ya also, the Mauryan you find like this, and then the next, of course, with a short stroke they again extended it, and then so remember, wherever the vertical strokes were there. And similarly Ra, the earlier serpentine Ra, and here also they extended and gave a curve. So as a principle, wherever strokes, verticals were there, they kept extending. And here we have this equalization of vertical. That's the second. So this is the first and the second, where I told in the Mauryan, Gha used to be like this, uneven. But subsequently, as we saw in the Kushans, they brought the stroke all in one, they equalized the stroke like this. And Pa also, just like this hook, but they made this stroke and taking to the equal length. Ya, these 2 hooks coming like this, like an anchor, but here you find stroke is formed like this and equally taking this. Ya. So this is called equalization of verticals. And similarly La, and here they made the bottom flat. Sometimes they used to take it upwards or equal also. And Sa, a hook like this. And later stage you find they beautifully cut it like this. See, the whole frame comes in this. Sa. And Ha, like this, where you find the bottom is also they equalize this. So this is the second. And the third is the lower base gets angularized. Or limbs, base or limbs also you can call. For example, Mauryan Ka is to write like this, and here in the Kushan Sha it gets a triangle basis bottom. And Gha uneven size, but here you find the base most of the time you get confused with Gha and Ya. Always remember, Ya, this limbal will be little broader, and this stroke, this the thing, the curve. Otherwise both have same. And Ja like this, and here you find like Roman E, and Da is written like this, where here it is angularized. And Pa, but whereas you find like this. Similarly, Ma, La, so the base, is bottom, and Sha, Sharmukha Shah, it is like this, and they made Shah. And Sa also, where you find like this, it becomes angular. And Ha. So these are the where you find the lower base gets angularized. And another feature is angular becomes cursive. There are a few instances which you already seen. Angular becomes cursive. So this is Ga, Mauryan. I told you this Ga, this side little shorter, ga, and ta. Either you can form like this or put a slanting stroke and attach. It can be either way. But here the head mark, little stroke, so it becomes cursive. And top vertical lines get shortened. There's another feature. Top vertical lines get shortened. So here when you see cha, this is the Mauryan, and here it changes. So this will be short. In fact, you don't have a long stroke. So they compress the whole thing. And this goes in this fashion, the long Ashokan, where you find both the semicircles on either side. But here the stroke, it shortens just cha. And ta, long stroke here, and it becomes very short with a little head mark in the Kshatrapa phase. Ta. Bha in Mauryan phase, where this length is shortened here, bha. So these are the features you have to remember while studying how the changes have come. So before I go for the Kshatrapas, one more general line of understanding is required, which I will show now. Then with a gap of few minutes I will proceed with the Kshatrapas. So I am trying to bring in within a short time whatever possible connected issues. So it's very important, which can be extended and talked over a period of time, many days. But to give very comprehensive look about the subject, both on paleography and epigraphy, I am trying to give so that you should not miss any important aspects connected with this. And this is how the teaching technique of paleography. It's not mere just standing and just giving a oration. It involves writing. How they wrote, we have to replicate, show to the students how it is formed. It's not mere theory. It's all about the practicality of putting things, how each stroke matters, how it makes a difference, and all we have to understand. Once this is there, automatically the skill the students gain to decipher. Otherwise their knowledge will remain in reading only a dozen of important inscriptions, right from Rimindi to all this. But they will not apply their skill to write. Importance you can read. Or they get stuck after the early Brahmi phase or Mauryan, they don't go further into that. This, of course, I have picked up from Dani. It's very much there in a more detailed manner. Head marks is very important. Of course, it has a bearing in the 7th, 8th century inscriptions. Of course, little early also. Head marks. After examining many, he has given some 6-7 headings. The first is line head mark. So it is one vertical stroke and the head mark will be very thin, just like this, which you find in many inscriptions. And another is blockhead. Block head mark. So this is the block head mark which you find in, they also call it monumental or whatever, block head mark, and the notched head mark, NOTCHED. That is one vertical stroke where 2 strokes keep going like this. Not too long, just they keep the top open. They don't fill it, just they cut it like that. It's a notch head mark. And solid square, next variety. Of course, this is with detailed explanation Dani has given. You can read it again, but I am bringing to your focus the important solid square head mark. That is one stroke, and here you are adding a block. This is called solid square head mark. Mostly the copper plates you find these varieties. And hollow square head mark. They hollow, they never filled, it's hollow. Hollow square head mark, then followed by solid triangle, or triangular, whatever way, is head mark. That is one stroke where the triangle head mark, and another is hollow triangle. So these are the varieties which Dhoni, after examining many of the inscriptions, he has listed. He has just made a reference in his introduction. So need not necessarily we come across all in our the further few days which we, yes, particularly when we go further 6th century onwards, when you examine large number of inscriptions, you find these things. So perhaps when I was just examining some more copper plates or stone, there are every likelihood of finding some more varieties. I didn't make a note of it, but if we again keeping this, and when you examine some more copper plates or anything, if another new variety emerges, this he has done long back, and how many he has seen we don't know. This is not a very important aspect, but it do matters. Suppose you come across while examining an inscription, other than the box head, nail head, if any other formations are there while forming a head mark, please make a note of it. So it can be added. It need not be limited to this, but a large number of you may be having different other varieties. So with this we'll take a gap for few minutes, 5 minutes, and then we'll go with the Kshatrapa phase, so that tomorrow we can have to go with the, because they are going to schedule a talk on the epigraphical heritage of Chhattisgarh, which will to some extent interfere with our regular scheduled program, but no issue, that that will be there. They will announce maybe from 11 to 12:30 or so, 11:30 to 1 o'clock or whatever maybe. We will have some session, preferably some decipherments we will have, and we will go with the Kshatrapa so that we can move on to tomorrow with the Guptas, and try to cover mostly more of paleographical aspects. If general details like data, date, eras, I don't know how much time we will have, but I feel personally I should focus on the Siddhamatrika, box head and other varieties. Yes, if due time permits, at least a brief account I want to give about the sealings, dates and eras, numerals. All I want to include, yes, it is exactly the time. Suppose I want to tell, no, I can't without skip, I have to skip many things. So these are also equally important. So it's very difficult to go exactly with the scheduled way of, why I do schedule it, because in one, either I will make it little brief, if time permits I will make it little longer, but every aspect will be touched upon. Maybe the question, when we have time, we will discuss little more, or else it will be there. So we will break for a few minutes. So we will continue with the next stage, the early Brahmi, that is Kshatrapa, calligraphical aspects of Kshatrapa inscriptions. So by and large, there is not much difference, but as I told, the pen technique mattered a lot, and when they held the pen, a small head mark formed, so they extended the stroke, not lengthening too much, but at the same time you find the appearance on either side, at least on the vertical stroke you find sharply the head mark, and then the curve starts, and as in the Kushan, this also will be shorter. And again the head mark somehow they extend the stroke here for ah. So in the Kushan you found the dots, that the small dashes, but here they followed the typical Mauryan method, that is dots, the apex of course facing to the right side. And E, again with a small head mark, they extended the stroke, the curve, and on either side you find the dot. This is lengthening E. Of course, U also continues in the same manner with a smaller stroke, and the length is all same. Adding stroke I am not going due to paucity of time. Vowel signs basically I have shown, and the same method when as you did in Ashokan, Mauryan Brahmi, you can do this. And here we come to a small head mark appears here. I told and the upper will be thicker. When you extend it tapers off. And while practicing also, I recommend this, you keep a gel pen instead of this usual. So the smoothness will not be there, and when you hold the gel, it holds. To some extent it comes. Whenever you want to put the head mark also, it sharply comes, and the thickness also you can define that. So for practicing you keep a gel, it will be very useful for this. And the curve here, dagger variety, this is Ka, and Ka is like this. See, the append is like this. In the Kushan you found attachment like this, and the Mauryan you find a simple circle, but here first you write a stroke and then start a stroke here like this. This is Ka. And the Ga, as I told, it's very Gha, on the left side you find a sharp dent, a small dent you find in the left side. Earlier, Gha was simple in the Kushan, making here all the equal. But here you have to make a small dent either little angle or cursive. It can be either way. Law is same. There is no change. And cha also with a little, whenever you form, have a small head mark, sharp, and then give a curve, cha. Cha in form in one go, little head mark. This loop will be shorter and you are taking little bigger. Cha cha. Again ja. This you don't find any dent here, which I showed in the Kushans. Jha is formed with a curve here, jha. Yeah, one simple stroke, extend the stroke and give a curve, and then this will be also cursive little. Ta, again tha, ta, tha, da, it takes a little deeper dent here, just like a cross section of the pottery when you see is like this. And this also again deeper. Only everywhere you add a head mark, and this is little deeper, and then connecting thing, da da. Sorry, this is the da, da. Now, as far as the upper stroke is small, shorter, and here it is short and it goes like this. Ta ta da da na. Again with a one stroke, head mark. And tha. Da is formed like this. Simple. Now again one stroke, this shorter, and then pa here with a dent. Now Kushan, simple pa, like this. But here you find at the left side a little bend. Again with a head mark. Hope the forms are clear to you. The distinction I'm trying to, because we don't have much time, otherwise if you move into Kushan, Kshatrapa would have shown. So again, time constraint, because Gupta will take at least 2 hours because the varieties. ज्यादा तो नहीं हो रहा है ना, थोड़ा टैक्सिंग नहीं है ना. बढ़िया कॉफी, अच्छा है, ठीक चाय.
Sir, the Pahar में sir, there is Chhattisgarh inscription from 2nd century. So, is it, can we say it is in later from?
2nd century Common Era.
Yeah.
Yes, it's early Brahmi only. We have a photograph.
Yes, that is an outside.
I will see. We will see there later.
It is in parking.
Parking area में, अच्छा. I have not observed. Yeah. Okay.
बाहर में पास में है निकलते समय वापस जाएंगे तो वो देखते हुए जाएगा.
कब जा पेपर है?
सामने भी है सर.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll continue next the remaining alphabets and all. So the next is Ba. Ba, one stroke, and you find a dent here, Ba. In Kushan, it was simple box where they try to get from Mauryan. But in the Kshatrapa, the left side you find the dent. Ba. And Bha is same with a little head mark. First you form like this and then attach a stroke. Ma is same, either aside, sometime you will have a small head mark on either side of the arms. Small. Ya is tripartite Ya. As I told, always it will be there. But the curve is not that deeper, just more or less same from Kushan to Kshatrapa. It is similar case. Ra is start with a head mark, continue with a curve, and this curve is not here in the Kushan. Just a simple stroke, not even head mark, nothing. But here you find a small head mark and extension and a curve. La is again with a curve, and you find a dent here. Okay. Ya, ra, la. But this you don't find in Kushan, just a simple stroke like this. But here you find, like southern characters, you find a small dent here. Voice stroke.